Hi, my name is Roger Mullin, and I'm a professor of architecture at the school here in Halifax. We're part of Dalhousie University, and we have something at the school that's come to be known as Free Lab. And Free Lab is, for us and many of the students who participate in it, it's a kind of companion piece for the more traditional pedagogical exercises that we would say are studio-based or classroom-based. So in the context of Free Lab, we take the classroom outside, and we have a designated 2-week work period in the summertime after regular classes end. I've been doing Free Labs at the school as long as I've been teaching there, so I've done 10 or 12 now, and some of mine have been more on the installation side and some on the building side, and working with communities often year after year to kind of accumulate what ends up being a fairly sticks and stones sort of project, often a very low budget, utilizing tools and resources from the community. So I think it's a great part of an education of an architect. I would argue that it's almost an essential part, given that I think more and more, especially in our part of the world, people are moving further and further away from the land and also from this idea of material presence. And so it's a really great opportunity to get your hands dirty and participate in the kind of emergence of a physical material thing that would often otherwise only be represented in drawings. My approach to this work, it involves a certain number of unknown variables and a certain number of known variables, and in this case I had not visited the site, but decided to kind of approach that work and that place through an invitation from a student at the School of Architecture, namely Guillaume Turbide. And so Guillaume and his family reside there, and he showed me 1 or 2 photographs, and it became a very attractive scenario.
So I just suggest to come to Paradise, and I think that was not like hard to convince people to get here to do a Free Lab. I like the landscape, and I think Roger was interested in building something on an island. So I think he asked me, so you're the guy from the island, isn't it? And then we just start talking about Magdalen Island, and I suggest that it could be a great place to do a Free Lab. I thought Roger kind of liked to have it free, so not decided. That's the way he worked. To be more influenced by the land. So I just suggest a spot because I had to suggest something so you can have an idea. So I just say, well, Google it. But then he was kind of asking for more. So Rosemary took pictures of that particular site, and then that was the suggestion. And I think we stick to it just because that was the suggestion, because there's another nice site, I think. Mm-hmm. But that one was way more easy because it's my dad's land. So that makes it just easier to be able to build on. Free Lab, Roger asked a few questions about what will be the tools available, or so. And yeah, that was part of the planning of the trip too. So we tried to make a list of tools I have, and I think because my dad's own a nice shop to build things, I think those tools were useful, especially in considering the weather that was not so nice. I think having a roof over our head for building a bit was kind of a must. Then yeah, I think Rogers, and I'm into using local material too. So the wood was coming from my cousin's land, and that was a fun part of the project to just get it and cut it myself. That makes it more grounded from the the entire process of building things, because even if it looks humanized, it always comes from the land at some point. So I think that was a neat idea.
There is that part of the work that resides both in our shared interest in the environment by way of architecture, by way of building, and then concurrently a kind of appreciation and interest in the work of other arts related to, certainly, but outside of the art of architecture. And those, for me, end up being aspects of painting, particularly modern painting, but also land art by way of some of the projects of Richard Smithson and Richard Long. And I'm certainly very impressed by the work of Mary Miss. And in her case, I appreciate both the actual project, but also the documented representation and the kind of parallel graphic works that accompany the project, sometimes preceding the project and sometimes after the project. So that would be well served by reiterating and acknowledging the compressed work schedule, and again sharing the fact that this wasn't a preconceived project, but really there was a kind of envisioning, a prediction, if you would, that the installation of these 80 very colorful objects and the kind of challenge and pleasure of designing a structure to hold them would do a couple of things. It would result in a project that had a certain impact, and it would be a response to the site. So the structural design, the armature to hold these buoys, I would say, is a kind of active architecture, but it's prototypical in the way that it plants the seeds for a certain kind of experience and a kind of implementation of responses, architectural responses to landscape and site that would grow out of this very compressed work period. So that's kind of what I mean by proto-architectural.
In the free lab, it was a good opportunity to just kind of get your hands on materials at the one-to-one scale and just kind of play with that and work things out together just by experimenting with the materials and kind of learning more about that in those regards. So it was good to be able to translate what you learn in school into the free lab. I mean, being on site, especially in such a unique place as the Magdalen Islands, was pretty incredible, and it made drawing just like so much better because you could exaggerate the slopes and all the things that we were playing on. So but I think one thing we had difficult with at first was actually thinking about the scale of those hills at first. Like when you were drawing them out, you didn't quite understand how large these were until we actually got out there and started putting up the post and trying to tension things down. And then you start to get a better idea of how drawing and actually building something can somehow, sometimes they work and sometimes they don't work. Yeah, I think we were kind of limited to what materials we were going to use because we had a strict budget. So I think that kind of forced us to think of things more simply and kind of taking what we had for materials, be it the rebarb and the rope and the buoys and the posts or the trees that we harvested ourselves. So I mean, we were working with kind of short supply, but I think I think it came down to just kind of understanding what the capabilities of the rope were and how they were going to be tied, and using knots in a certain way to kind of really tension these posts down. So it was a good challenge.
Part of our work is to, and this is in an architectural way, develop, design, and put together a structure that would engage in some sort of dialogue with these buoys. And that's one part of it. The other part of it is just the kind of ripple effect or the impact of installing these colorful and repetitive elements in a landscape. So the idea with the obstructions really is to look forward to sort of indeterminate variables that might provide a bit of resistance and actually sort of lend focus to the project. So I would say the idea is to kind of travel with these pieces and to engage with a different kind of, or a different form of resistance each time, and that can come by way of the landscape, or again by way of the limited tools, limited budget, and also, and as importantly, all of the people that are involved. So in this case, we went through a series of tuning, and in some cases retooling parts of the project to make it the shape and the dimension that we wanted it to be. So it ended up being, I think, about 375 feet long, or thereabouts, yeah. And it was a single line, as you'll see in the landscape, in this beautiful landscape of the Magdalene Islands.